about you guys?
She has a different voice and a different understanding.
Hello and welcome to Offsite Dirt. My name is Mark Willie, and today we're covering the dirt. Audrey, who do we have with us today?
It is so wonderful to be here with both of you, and we have an exciting person from Northern British Columbia, yay Canada. Mark Anson is with us with Timber Tiles right here. He's going to give us a little bit of background about his story, where he came from, and how he started as a builder and then actually into architectural and where he is today. So welcome, Mark.
Oh, thanks a lot. This is fantastic to be here chatting with you guys. The show that you offer is inspirational, and there's just so much information that you share with the community, and I really appreciate being part of that. Right, I'm trained as both an architect and a builder, and most recently I'm identifying as the founder of Timber Tiles, where I've taken the lessons that I've learned through architecture, and now I'm really applying it all into a wooden widget. And we're really happy to be launching that all over North America right now. Okay, so here's the tit for tat. Is it, will follow-up questions, or should I just rant along?
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Okay, well,
absolutely. So where I was in my brain while you were saying that, Mark, is you touched on one of my favorite phrases that I don't think many people know, and that is wooden widget. So widget is not even a common term to many folks, but for those that are innovative and in kind of the fabrication side of the world, widget is a remarkable term that kind of either starts a conversation or continues it. So I loved it, and I was stuck there. So while we're in wild terms, right? Let's go to another wild word, and that is biophilic, right? So when people meet you, when they discover your company, when they see an installation or look at the product, they have a response to that. Take it away from there, Mark.
Sure. I mean, essentially, timber tiles are an architectural wood wall tile, right? And although we're driven by both environmentally and socially responsible notions, it's really, we're bringing wood into the building sphere. And if I work it backwards a little bit, timber tiles is really inspired by our local First Nations, their stewardship of the land, their care for the community. And when you look at it, the First Nations here were living symbiotically with nature for thousands of years. And that's what biophilic design is trying to tap into. It's this innate ability that humans have to respond to nature. And it was developed for all kinds of reasons, right? For senses of safety and knowledge and being able to predict what is going to be happening around you. And we've largely lost that. We now live in these Euclidean geometries, right? We have straight lines and flat planes, and level and plumb are the words that we use for construction. And really in nature, those things don't exist. It's more of a fractal geometry, not a Euclidean. And if we look at fractal geometries, we're really familiar with them. That's the dappled light coming through trees, or that's the ripple of water, or the pattern of how bark grows up a tree. And our brains immediately recognize those fractal geometries and associate them with nature. And when that happens, we get a biophilic response. And there are different products that can generate it, and there's different ways. So in architecture, we talk about doing it through natural light and natural ventilation, and through controlling the volumes of spaces that we're in. And if I were to elaborate on any of those, it wouldn't be natural light just as putting a window into a room. That's not going to trigger the biophilic response. What I'm talking about is like a clear story window that goes all the way around the space. so that when you're in that space, you know where the sun is in the sky. You know which direction the storm is approaching from because you have that information around you with the light. Or if you were bringing in natural ventilation, you should be able to smell the pollen in the air, right? You should know when there's a dip in temperature outside. So it's about basically us being in situ with the surroundings that we're at. So that's biophilic response or design. And what we did with timber tiles is that we found through a lot of research that introducing wood into the spaces that we live and work can trigger a biophilic response. And you can do that through, putting in more than about 50% wood. But where it triggers the most is not when we put in this vertical grain tight wood that is just like perfect, which we love to specify as architects and designers. But when we bring in wood that has the grain patterns that are more wavy and beautiful, that's when we can get this trigger. So that's what timber tiles is trying to do. We're trying to stay with natural warm colors of wood. We're trying to really accentuate the beautiful grain of wood. And we've put a lot of effort into making sure that our tiles still feel like wood. And this is important because a biophilic response is through all of our senses. So that's the trigger of biophilic response for you.
That makes me feel like I need to go walk a path. I need to go in nature right now. It's super exciting to see that it's almost like this science that you have developed, not only in the building, but the science of the body and the collection of nature and how it really triggers us to feel more healthy and more well-being. And it seems like that is something that you're trying to achieve through timber tiles. Would that be a great assumption, or am I just kind of out of left field here, Mark?
No, it's really fair, and it is based on science. And what I love is that even people who say, "Oh, I hate wood," and I mean, I guess they're out there somewhere. This was according to a study that I read, right?
Mark and I don't know those people. Just so you know.
I mean, who could possibly not love wood? People who say that they claim that they don't like wood, if put into a wood environment, have a biophilic response. And they have taken children who grew up in a really urban setting, very detached from nature, and put them in rooms that were predominantly wood, and they got a biophilic response. And what this response is it's a lowering of your heart rate, it's a reduction of your blood pressure, it's overall stress relief, but it's also how you respond to it in how you function. So we find that students perform better, workers are more productive. There's all these really beneficial things that come from this magical material of just simply putting more wood into spaces. And so when I came to learn that, that's when timber tiles is really born. It's like, well, if this is what we can get out of wood, then how do we get more wood out there? And Mark, your comment about wooden widget at the beginning, my own house is built to a passive house standard and to LEED Platinum, and it's a complete house built all around wood. It's wood everything. It's a heavy mass timber CLT, and it's got this crazy wood wave roof, and it's a wood foundation. It's all wood. And I'd have people come down my lane and say, "Oh, could you build one of these houses for me?" And I couldn't. It wasn't attainable. It wasn't a house for the masses. It was very, very specific in me kind of doing this academic research into how to build with wood. And so I thought, well, the principles that are in this house, how do I make them available to more people? And I thought, well, timber tiles is essentially putting all these ideas about social responsibility in the environment into the wooden widget. And what is the wooden widget? It's a super simple tool that is widely available, that everybody kind of knows how to use it, because a widget kind of does anything, right? And that's how I view timber tiles.
I love it. So we know that it's renewable, durable, sustainable. And one of the questions that we were kind of talking in this conversation is the short carbon cycle versus a long carbon cycle.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit more feedback on what does that mean and why is it so important for us?
Right. So really, we have at a global scale of cycles, we have the short carbon cycle, which is the world is constantly giving off CO2 and absorbing it in our land, our forests growing and decomposing, and forest fires and all of that stuff is a cycle that's absorbing roughly the same amount as it's releasing every year. And the ocean, almost at the same proportion, is doing that as well. And so you have the land and the ocean that are in this balance for hundreds of thousands of years, whatever it is. Where we're running into problems, and that's the short carbon cycle. And where we're running into problems is that we are tapping into the long carbon cycle, and that is the fossil fuels that are deep down into the crust of our Earth, right? And we're pulling those off, and we're releasing them as fast as a flick of a match into the atmosphere. And the short carbon cycle can absorb some of it, but it can't absorb all of it. And so it's accumulating and causing us these problems. So what we're trying to do with timber tiles is avoid anything to do with the long carbon cycle. So if we are replacing a ceramic tile, ceramics are largely made through fossil fuels and through transportation, and we're bringing in a very lightweight wood, which is grown and from sunlight and soil, all within that short carbon cycle. So, we're really excited by the aspects. But then if I take it a little bit further, so the short carbon cycle is just, running along on the crust of the Earth. And for every tree that we cut down, a tree is replanted. And it's going to take about 70 years for that tree to regrow. So it is cyclical. But we also plant an additional tree for every box that we sell. And what that means is that from the mass from one tree, we can build about 250 boxes of tile. So we're going to plant 250 seedlings from one tree. We expect about 50 of those trees to reach maturity in 70 years. So from one tree to 50, that's not a circular economy. That's like a spiraling economy going in the right direction, right? And we do that elsewhere as well. Circular economy, generally people talk about, reduction and reuse and all that. I'm liking to think of it as a spiral. So when we take a lift of wood, and a lift is what you would see in a lumber yard, a pile of wood. I buy a lift of wood and I convert that into timber tiles that has 20 times more value than that original lift of wood. So if we're out here and we're cutting down forests because we want money and jobs, well, we can get a lot more money by making timber tiles out of that lift than just selling it across the border. And then if we're doing it for money and jobs, well, for jobs in BC, maybe different where you are, we have essentially one forestry job is generated for every 1,000 cubic meters of wood that we harvest. Well, with timber tiles, we make one job out of 50 cubic meters of wood that we process. So we have a 20 times multiplier on jobs. And our increase in value and our increase in jobs didn't require us to cut down a single tree because those trees were already cut down for the commodity market. We're pulling right off that commodity shelf. So, we're looking at, again, spiraling that 20 jobs, spiraling the 20 times multiplier of money, 50 times more trees. It's just like let's all use wood. It just makes so much sense.
So yes, it makes sense. And I actually have 10 questions now that we won't be able to get to, but you've teased us with the lift of wood and the trees that you planted. Can we dive into what these look like and share this with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I could do a share screen with you, and I could pop up a couple of slides, and I'll flick through them really quick on the topics that I've already talked about and get to some images for you. Sure.
Perfect. So yes, the response that we all heard about is real, and the feeling we get is real. But let's not neglect that this is sexy looking, right? This is also high design.
Yeah, I mean, wood is, I would say, the building product for the future. As we get into engineered wood products and mass timber products, we're going to see more and more wood out there. And although it's the most ancient of building materials, timber tiles is also trying to modernize the look of the wood. So
we're seeing some grain formations here. Can you tell us species and process that of what's on our screen?
Oh yeah, this is exciting. So the tile that you see is predominantly all end grain, and we've cut it at 18 degrees. So imagine that you have a 4x4 running across. We're cutting at 18 degrees like you would a French loaf of bread, right? And by doing that, we've exposed end grain front and back, or top and bottom. Now, why that's important is not just because it looks beautiful, but it allows us to take the moisture out of the wood very, very quickly and easily without any checks or cracks. So we're taking it out the way that the wood naturally wants the water to leave the wood. And once we've got it very, very dry, we can dip it in a finish and it absorbs it like a sponge. And so we get really deep penetration of our finishes, which helps lead towards the durability of our product. So this is a bathroom.
That magic angle of 18 degrees, I'm so glad you said it, because when I first saw this, I was like, end grain. But then I'm like, well, now, wait a minute, this is elongated.
That's right.
And you answered it straight away, cutting it like French bread. Beautifully put.
Yeah. And, you know, the grain length is actually 1 inch. You can't break these over your knee. And I love it when people come to the factory to have a look. And I'm like, go ahead, break one. And you're going to have to use the side of the desk and you're going to grunt. It's not easy.
So being that air, Mark, that is that thickness, is it hard for installation?
No. So 3/8 of an inch is how thick the product is, which matches up with other ceramic tiles. So you can use all the same details and edge and everything. It's very, very lightweight. And we put it on just with a bit of PL Premium or a polyurethane adhesive that you could trowel on. But what it also means is that it pops off the wall very easily. And so our product is part of the circular economy because we want it to last 70 years as long as it takes to regrow the tree that it came from. So when you're finished with these in 8 years or 10 years, or your retailer is changing their look, they can pop them all off the wall and reuse them. Ceramic tiles, not so much.
Brilliant. Love that.
Okay, so is my screen coming up for you now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So this bathroom here is over 10 years old, but this photo is just from last year. And, they handle a wet environment, no problem. They're finished with a Seikos hard wax oil, which is a commercial flooring finish, which makes them exceptionally durable, but also breathable for passive house, which is good. So, wood offers us a sustainable future. I think I've already elaborated on that. This is out the back door, essentially. This is my own home that I commented on, and it is a study in how to use wood. So there's no plastic or drywall or foam or bad insulation or gas. We built it to a standard of living building challenge, but it's an arduous certification. And I believe that wood is the only way that we can move forward. This is our charred siding. I don't put any finishes on the exterior of my buildings. They're all just left natural. So we manufacture wood wall tiles, and you can see here that we have different colors and different shapes that we can provide, all kind of blending into that ceramic tile market. And, very simple to install. This took us about 2 hours to install in a house in a Noose Bay. This is part of our installation video on our website. And going up against ceramics. So we believe in a value-added product, but we're not trying to create more door and window styles that's already saturated market. We're bringing wood to the tile industry, which really wood has zero representation there right now. So we need to be faster, cleaner, greener. We have these innovations in how we fabricate it. But my lessons in architecture about how to build environmentally and responsibly, we've tried to put into this product. So we're a zero waste factory, and we have all these carbon sequestering options. This is those 20 times multipliers that I spoke of, so we could flip past that. And this is, I take a little bit of poetic license here, but this is about how much carbon management we do with our product. So I'm going to flip to the end one here. And basically, because we're creating money and jobs without cutting any more trees, I factor in the protection of those trees or the avoidance of cutting them down into how much carbon we are essentially creating as safe for 1 year of fabrication of timber tiles. And although there's some carbon CO2 which is sequestered in our wood. It's very little compared to the impact that we have by protecting trees and planting trees. And that's all part of that short carbon cycle. So at the end of 1 year of fabrication, there's 250,000 tons of CO2 that we've avoided putting into the atmosphere. And a lot of this any company could do, but this is something that's core to the structure of our company. I think that you probably are quite familiar with the circular economy and that slide. And this is just looking at biophilic design and where it falls into green building practices. Right. So I think that what I'm doing here by pulling up some slides here is I'm just giving you an opportunity to insert them elsewhere if you want to, right? Yeah, I mean, there's a whole talk that goes with this that I think I've mostly already covered.
Yeah, Mark, we could dive into this for hours on
It's so
end.
beautiful.
Yes, what you're doing is spectacular. Whenever someone creates something in a space when it didn't exist, you might find that larger corporations will follow suit. If that's the case, if a larger corporation tries to follow suit, I hope they walk hand in hand in the same path of harmony that you created, both for the process, for the future, and for the feeling right before our very eyes. It's incredible.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And when people say, aren't you worried about other people, ripping you off and making these tiles? Like, no, I hope they do. Like that would be a win. Let's get more of these out there. Yeah.
Well, I cannot thank you enough, Mark Anson. You are creating something that more offsite builders need to use in their factories. We need to start changing from the ceramic into wood only. And because there's a great opportunity for the people living in these buildings to realize the harmony that they can have in their life from a product that can create something so unique. So thank you for being here on Offsite Dirt.
Thanks, Audrey. Cheers. Thanks, Mark.
There we go. Another really amazing product from a builder, architect, and now a designer of creating something that uniquely can actually enhance our life, make us feel better, helps with the carbon cycle and creating not only a circular economy, but an economy that actually spirals up and allows us to plant trees and create jobs in harmony with a product that can actually make us feel good. So with that, thank you, Mark Willey. Thank you, Mark Anson. Thank you, everyone, for being here on Offsite Dirt. Again, we are collaborating, bringing stories to you of real people that are really making an impact, and we are so grateful to be a part of it.